Welcome to this very last session of today, and I think what we are left only after that is the Birds of the Feather talk. I'm glad you made it for the Maven talk on the Java conference. Hardly anybody speaks about Maven, especially from context that it can be in any way ultimate or whatsoever. I hope you noticed from the title that this is kind of troll talk. What I do on a daily basis is I work with legacy teams, and I work a lot of legacy code. And this talk is coming from a perspective that very often we are on a project that we have no power to change anything around the build. So we are stuck in a certain environment, and we don't have much space to replace Maven with something else or to introduce yet another tool to our infrastructure that will do the thing we are aiming for. So we are left with Maven, and how we can make it do things we would like to do. So yes, this is pretty much the premise for the talk. This is the only slide. I will jump back to IDE, as this is kind of a tools in action. I will cover a few things. If you would like to see and get the code, I will be showing, as well as the examples. It is all here. It's on GitHub. So I've spoken a few words. Who am I? I came from Poland, and yes, I work a lot with legacy teams, working with legacy software. The thing I see is that they gradually try to recover from legacy trauma by introducing microservices, which is out of the frying pan into the fire in certain cases. But yes, that's my and that's where the inspiration for this talk came from. So in general, why not Maven? Well, Maven is not exactly very often tool for the job. It is. It has the preferred easy path. That's how they refer it. So if you do things Maven way, you are all right. But if you think of doing things different way, or very different way than the Maven way, then you have certain problems and configurations issue, and you have to do things on your own. You can do your own plugins, but unfortunately, writing a plugin for Maven, it's not a minute, or extending your build pipeline with Maven, it's not a matter of minutes. It's rather a matter of hours or days, because you have to build something, and there is a steep learning curve in building the plugin. So why we are talking about Maven? Yes, because it's an oldie but goldie, and everybody uses it. So getting back to anything related to slides, not code, I can feel that there is a kind of an ideal build pipeline, or maybe not an ideal, but certain steps that repeat from the project to project in terms of getting the continuous integration or continuous delivery right. So we have multiple dependencies on our project. Sometimes it's just the single binary that we are building. Then we are trying to assemble it in any way, and then build it in a kind of binary form. I call it release, whether put it into our local Maven repository, and then do some next steps like testing it, UAT testing it, releasing to all the staging environment, and so on and so forth. And as soon as we are happy with the result of the tests, we are ready to promote it. And we said, yes, this is a stable build, and yes, you can go it on the production. So the thing is that we would like to have only the green step happen remotely, and all the other steps, all the other previous steps happen locally, either locally on our machine or locally on the continuous integration server, or locally wherever. So we don't want to prematurely release our artifact when we are not sure that that's the one that we are happy with. We don't want to tag anything on the remote repository, or we don't want to push it into the like in the remote source control, or we don't want to push anything into remote repository. And this leads still us to some anti-patterns, like we can still deploy it manually, or we can have production-like environments and so on, but it exposes, I think, certain patterns, and I will focus on them. We would like to have binary build only once. As soon as we build the binary, the WAR file, the jar file, whatever we are releasing, we want to have it, and we don't want kind of rebuild it. We want like to have the whole process covered with this single binary file that we just prepared, so that we are sure that if we get out of to the production environment, it will still behave in exactly the same way. So we would like to deploy the same binary to every environment and smoke test the dependency. And as soon as this gets right, and as soon as we are sure that it's the right build, we are happy to release. This is pretty much the how in most of the cases we are looking at. So I will focus today on three things: on releasing process, on preparing. I'm preparing the Docker image, but preparing any other image that can go directly to your production environment if you are looking for any virtualization or containerization thing, and how to assemble applications from multiple parts. I call it microservice-ish architecture because it's microservice, but not exactly. So the thing is that we have separate teams working on separate things from a monolithic deployment, and you would like to assemble them. Sometimes the teams are working on a totally different environment. Half is working Java on the backend side, and the other half is working JavaScript on the front end, and we have to combine it somehow. And yes, Maven still can help us. You might say that why bother? Because we have Maven release plugin that should do the job. Yeah, the problem is that it doesn't exactly do the job, or it does the job in a very opinionated way, and it's not always that this opinionated way is our way. Let me show it by example. Earlier on, because the internet connection was a little bit flaky, I created a new Maven project with the architect generate. I won't do it now because it takes a while. So it's in the sample in my sample folder. It doesn't have much, but it kind of compiles. So I have a clean Maven just to show you that yes, there is something inside. This is just an archetype. What I would like to do is I will initialize the Git repository, do the Git Git ignore thing, and have a baseline. And now what I would like to do is I will jump to an editor. Which is just an Atom editor, and to have the release thing, to be able to release this, I will define two things. I will define the SCM, so my software, my software repository, and I will add one more thing. So I will add the release plugin. To a certain extent, I can just use the one that is out of the box, but it's not the latest version, so this is at least the latest version. And now, to a certain extent, my project is ready to be released, so I can enter this whole continuous integration thing. I add everything in here. Git add. And try to do and push it. No, I'll have to push it. Yeah, there's this sample. Repository that I haven't defined. I could have used, I can do it through Maven, through SCM plugin, like do the check-in and everything, or just do it standard. That's an easy part. Remote auth origin. Gods of live coding are not with me today. So now I have the code somewhere in the repository outside. So if I do the Maven release plugin goes from two steps. First, I've prepared the release, which does all the changes within my POM files, and tags the current version with a release version, and then I have a second command, release perform, which actually do the release. So if I do the release prepare, what will happen? It will ask me for certain values that I would like to put into my my application, that it will rebuild it and will start fiddling around with my remote repository. It will do tagging. It will do certain tagging. It will commit the new version for so-called ready for development, and it will push everything remotely. If I look at my Git log at the moment, I have 2 new commits that are made by Maven release plugin. And the thing about Maven release plugin is that it has been prepared for releasing certain things around Maven plugins, and that's their workflow, and that's work for them. And in many cases, in many teams that I've been working with, they were trying to adapt to adapt to, for example, Git flow or other ways of working with code. That's those 2 commit messages, and that it was doing everything remotely and on the master branch, for example. That wasn't something that they were really looking after. So what we can do now, we can either hack the Maven release plugin and its configuration, that will be exactly what we will be doing, or we can write our own plugin that will do the releases in a way that that we would like to do. In most of the cases, we end up hacking and fiddling with the configuration. It's never ideal, but it pretty much can get you to the point that you might be more or less satisfied with the results. So let me jump back to the IDE. I will get to the point. I will rewind my project before I had to-dos. So there are multiple things that we'll focus on, and I will just show you one by one what we can do to make it better. First of all, this is a multi-module project. The way you organize a certain convention that you might build within your team, and this is the convention that we've been using on some projects. We have a folder called app or whatever, which is the application, which is the code that we are aiming to push out to the production. And we have a second project that it's more or less for deployment purposes. It, for example, builds our images or builds our Docker. It can actually push the artifacts out to the remote repository. We just keep them we just keep them separated, still having a single origin, kind of a single a root of a parent project, and we will start with this parent project. Within here, there is not much besides the definition of the SCM connection, and then multiple plugins. As I've shown you on the graph, what we will be looking after is not just releasing it, but what I would like to do is I would like to first branch my code into a potential release branch, then do everything I would like to do on the release branch, so not to fiddle with the master or not to fiddle with the develop branch, do everything on the release branch. So run the tests, do the changes, do the preparation for the next development cycle, to a certain extent deploy remotely or whatever I would like to do. And the moment then I will be happy with that, then jumped back onto master and continue with the development and merge whatever happened on the release branch. One of the ideas of doing it purely with Maven, because you can do it exactly with, for example, Jenkins build pipeline, is that besides it's not always, at least the teams I've been working with were not always able to get exactly the Jenkins that they wanted to, is that if you do it in, for example, Maven, then you can pretty much step by step reproduce everything you were doing without a need of a separate infrastructure. And the other problem with Maven, the other problem with Jenkins, which at the moment is pretty much solved, but with the other continuous integration tools like Bamboo, is that whenever you build your continuous integration pipeline or continuous delivery pipeline within such tool, you're pretty much vendor locked in. And there was no easy way to get it out. For quite a long time, Apache Bamboo didn't even have a backup option. So if you would like to back up your scripts or keep your configuration of your continuous delivery pipeline somewhere not in the tool. There was no easy way to do it. On the other hand, Maven, with all this overhead it has due to XML, it's still understood by most of the developers, and it's kind of their first pick in terms of we will build something. So that's why we can try it with Maven. So what we'd like to do is we would like to create a branch, check out the branch, do everything locally. So build the project, do the testing, and then, if we are happy, start the releasing pipeline. So I'm using here two plugins. One is Maven SCM plugin, just to do the branch. That's easy. Push changes false means I will not push it further to remote repository. But on the other hand, if I would like to use the same plugin to check out my source code, that's not very easy because it will ultimately try to clone the remote repository and check out the single branch. So I'm just doing the exec Maven plugin to check out with the local git command the branch that I'll be using for releases. And now I would like to fiddle a bit with the release plugin. So that's kind of a standard configuration for release plugin, no very fancy execution. I tag the name with a format I would like. By default is, I think, project name hyphen project version. We will do the project version. And yes, we will version all submodules downstream of our parent POM. So now what we would like to do is, yes, we don't want to push the changes. We don't want to push the changes outside of our local repository. So there is this push changes tag, which I'll be setting to false. By default, it's true, and I will force it to use to do the local checkout. Like this. The problem with configuration is that not every tag, not every configuration options works both for preparation of the release and for the actually performing the release. So yeah, that's a little bit tricky. And then there is an option on the release plugin that actually let me choose which steps, which goals I would like to execute before actually doing the release. So there is this preparation goals tags, and I can space separate all the goals I would like to do before I actually run start preparing the release. So I'd like to do the clean. I would like to do the testing. By default, it's clean verify, which for me, Maven means clean the projects and run everything up to integration testing. If I don't want, for example, to do the integration testing now, I will focus with just testing. I can do test. Then I would like to branch. Then I would like to branch the thing. Then I call SCM branch, and then I would like to check it out, which I do through exec plugin with the git. How is it called? Git checkout, more or less like this. Okay, so that's my preparation. And last but not least, during performing the release, so we'll actually try to release the code. There's another option, which means goals, and these are the goals I would like to run when I'll be actually doing the release. By default, it's deploy, so we will be running all the steps of Maven lifecycle until we do the deploy, which is installation on the remote server. However, obviously, I can tune it, and I would like to just install it in my local repository because I will run everything locally. So no matter whether I'll be doing on my local developer's machine, on any other machine, or this will be task run by Jenkins, it will pretty much work in exactly the same way. The small trick might be making it environment independent, so running the same on Linux box and on macOS box and on Windows box, but that's not something that most of the developers haven't done already. The other thing is that if we start preparing our tooling like this, what Jenkins or any other continuous integration tool, it becomes a simpler scheduler. So if we try to encapsulate all the steps for the continuous delivery pipeline within Maven, then we can use any continuous integration tool just to do next, 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 which to a certain extent is tempting by a few teams, because I've seen situations where the continuous delivery pipeline was built by operations guy who didn't have much knowledge about programming per se, and build the pipeline as code in the with the best possible intention, but still not being a perfect programmer. So it kind of gets a little bit messy. And with this approach, I've seen the same people simply collaborated with developers, and the overall effect was better. So it's very contextual, depending on what you are trying to achieve and how things work for you. I will now do the trick. I will not. I'll just check out the tag where I was doing exactly the same. So it's just formatting different, just to make sure that I haven't made any typo. And I can run it with Maven release prepare. It will take a while, so then I will skip to another part. This B in the beginning, if you haven't come across, it's exactly the same as Maven batch mode. The Maven has this feature that if it was interactive, so if it was to ask me certain questions during the build process, like what should be the next version number and whatsoever, with batching I can suppress it, and it will take either defaults that by conventions are suitable, or will take the arguments that I'll provide externally. So I just run it. And we'll get back to that in a second, unless it fails. Okay, so that was pretty much the release plugin, and we were here. The other, so what we will be trying to get is to have the release on the not on the current branch, but on the separate branch. Then check it out, do all the stuff, and go from there. And yes, then if we are happy with what we are releasing, if we are happy with what we've built, then we explicitly merge it back to developer or master, and then go on from there. Like minimize the amount of artificial intelligence coming from your XML script. So while it's let's finish while it's building. So as you can see, we are on the separate branch already. If I do git status, I can see all the backup release files and the release properties that are prepared by Maven. I will do the release perform and let it run for a while. While it's performing the release, Maven is actually forking itself. And the second thread is rebuilding the whole application, then checking it out from scratch and running all the tests, which sometimes are very huge, because actually that one involves the application server. And let me jump back to, while it runs, to how I actually prepare the assembly. If we see once again this point, we have multiple dependencies that all together come into our monolithic WAR file or ER file, depending on your environment. So I have multiple jars, for example. I have a WAR file that I have a web application which I overlay, and a few other things that I would like to work with. So as long as it's a Java project, that Maven is natural and we can combine it all. The problem is when we see non-Java project, like JavaScript project, you have a JavaScript team or JavaScript guys on your team who are really keen on building the front end with the new shiny things like JavaScript, and their build tooling looks slightly different. It's a package JSON with some build scripts, npm script, or even like gulp things and whatsoever. Integrating it to our web application might be a little bit problematic, but again, we can do it with to a certain extent with Maven. What I usually do in such situation, and that pretty much work quite efficiently, I agree with the team that I will kind of drop in a certain thing, a single file into their repository, and I will care of it. So what I do is I put a POM file into their project, so they can work independently, and there is a POM XML which I maintain as a part of their project, meaning I separate team or somebody who owns the build. The way it works, the way it looks like, it's a very simple POM file which is using two plugins. One is one of many front-end plugins for Maven, which what they do is actually download the Node.js, download npm, and run from Maven whatever is in their project. So I'm kind of using Maven as a runner, where I define these are the Node.js version, Node.js version. Then you execute installation, and then you do the actual build, which has some ID like build, and have a goal, also npm, and some configuration arguments. Which are run build. So what it actually does, it will run the underlying npm package JSON with the appropriate parameters, and what will happen is the outcome of the build will be placed in a directory that I am configuring. So, for example, I will put it into a target, either into app folder or into target whatsoever, and then I'm using a second very simple Maven plugin, which is well-known Maven resource plugin, to take whatever was the result of the previous build. In that case, by a certain convention, it was dist folder, and repackage it to target classes meta-inf resources folder. Why I'm doing that? With Java Servlet 3.0, which is a few years old already, there was this idea of web resources. So if you ever come across a webjar.org, you can take whatever JavaScript library, wrap it in a jar file, put it in your class path, and if the static resources, meaning JavaScript or HTML or whatever, are in the meta-inf resources folder, they are automatically exposed to your browser as a static resources of your web application, as long as it's a servlet-based application. So that way, I took all the stuff that JavaScript guys written and put it and dump into a web application in the way I would like to do it. And that way, I combine all the libraries, all the dependencies into a single WAR file, which I then take through my build pipeline. So speaking about the build, yes, it's successful. It's, as you can see, it released everything built locally. I'm still on the release branch. I can see, that the jars are moved to my local repositories, all the dependencies that I've been looking after. So now I can move on with the releases in the way I would like to do. So what I'll do, as just to show you, what I'll do is I'll run in my Docker, in my deployment Docker, I will run Maven Docker build. So I'll prepare the Docker image. This thing I'm using, so I'm adding here, is I explicitly can externally define the version that I would like to use. So this means it's an artifact already in my repository. And then my Docker Maven plugin wraps it all together and install it locally. So the way I do it, just final sentence, is that in my script I define properties that are easily overridable from externally, and then I use the dependency of my the Maven dependency to inject it into whatever further build I need. So if I would like to use this dependency as an artifact which I would like to deploy to any application server, I can do it in exactly the same way, because most of the plugins support that feature. So getting back to the IntelliJ, that's pretty much the 3 tricks that you can use and that can help you with pretty much organizing your build around continuous delivery pipeline. Half an hour is not much. So you can go further and explore it. The project is up and running. You can ping me up on Twitter if you feel that Maven is killing you and not you are killing yourself. So thank you very much. Hope you'll find it usable to a certain extent. Thank you.